The human had not just defended her, he had changed her understanding of power, courage, and survival. And in doing so, he had given her colony a chance it had never had before. The galaxy outside was vast and dangerous, but within the safe house, a small flame of hope burned bright. The human had shown her the way. The line had been drawn. And the mob would soon learn that some lines once drawn could not be crossed without consequences they could not control. The sun never truly rose over the colony, not in the way distant star systems brought light, but the station's artificial lights illuminated the central square as the citizens gathered, tense yet hopeful. Word had spread quickly. The mob had failed to eliminate their diplomat and her mysterious human ally. The news traveled faster than the fastest ships, reaching other colonies and independent worlds on the edge of mob territory. She stood at the podium, her heart steady, hands gripping the edges. Around her, the colony's leaders, scientists, traders, and ordinary citizens looked to her for guidance. The human enforcer stood silently behind her, calm, his gaze sweeping the crowd. His presence alone was enough to remind everyone that they had survived threats that should have destroyed them. The mob, far away in their headquarters orbiting a distant gas giant, had not expected resistance so organized, so precise. Their attacks had failed not because of strength or numbers, but because humans had adapted, improvised, and anticipated every move. And now, the galaxy was beginning to see it. She took a deep breath. We have survived not because of weapons, not because of power, but because of courage, strategy, and unity. We faced an enemy that thought we were weak, replaceable, expendable, and we proved them wrong. The crowd murmured, some nodding, some whispering, stories of how the human had single-handedly predicted the mob's attacks, countered them, and protected the colony without unnecessary violence. It was not just survival. It was a lesson. The human stepped forward slightly. His voice was quiet but carried authority. Strength alone does not protect you. Fear alone does not keep you safe. Awareness, adaptability, and courage. These are the principles that matter. You now understand what it means to draw a line. That line is not just for one colony. It can protect many if they choose to stand together. She felt the weight of his words. The line had already been drawn once in the negotiation hall, marked by a single snarl that changed everything. But now, the principle extended far beyond the walls of their station. Other worlds were beginning to grasp it. Humans were not fragile. They were not easily intimidated. They defended what mattered, and they could inspire others to do the same. Meanwhile, the mob scrambled. News of their failed strike and the warning broadcast from the station had reached their communication network. The empire they had ruled, with fear and precise control, was beginning to fracture. Allies hesitated. Independent colonies reconsidered allegiances. Rumors spread that humans were not just unpredictable, they were dangerous. The notion that one line could halt a powerful empire was a thought the mob had never entertained. Back on the colony, she and the human worked tirelessly to strengthen their defenses, train volunteers, and establish communication with neighboring worlds. She learned quickly, absorbing the strategies, the mindset, the logic of anticipation and action that the human demonstrated. Every day was a lesson in resilience, every challenge a reminder that the line they had drawn could not be crossed without consequences. The mob tried again, launching a fleet toward the colony, hoping to intimidate and crush the budding resistance. But the human had anticipated this. Using a combination of electronic countermeasures, calculated patrols, and carefully designed traps, they neutralized the fleet's threat before it could reach the station. Not a single life was lost among the colony's defenders, and the mob ships returned damaged, their pride wounded. She watched the battle unfold from the command center. Every move, every decision was deliberate. The human did not act recklessly, nor did he hesitate. He applied pressure strategically, using the mob's expectations against them. The lesson was clear. Adaptability and courage could overcome even overwhelming power. When the battle ended, the colony erupted in cheers. The mob had failed again, and the humans had not only survived, they had won. The news traveled faster than light, reaching distant systems. Other colonies began sending emissaries seeking alliances, eager to learn from those who had stood up to the mob and survived. She stood beside the human on the balcony overlooking the square. The citizens below waved and cheered. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "They will try again. They will not give up easily." The human nodded. "No, they will not. But they will think twice before crossing lines they do not understand. The galaxy now knows that humans are not just tools, not just soldiers. We are protectors, strategists, and unyielding when necessary." Days passed, and the mob's influence weakened further. Systems that had once been loyal or fearful began defecting, joining alliances formed by humans and sympathetic colonies. The empire of intimidation that had seemed unshakable was beginning to crumble. The human had taught them that power alone was insufficient, principles and courage mattered more. She walked through the colony streets, observing the rebuilding efforts. Traders reopened shops, children played freely, and scientists worked without fear. The presence of humans who had adapted and survived inspired hope, not just for her colony, but for the galaxy. The human approached her, quietly, as she observed the bustling streets. "Your colony will not just survive," he said. "It will thrive. And the line we drew will endure if you continue to enforce it wisely." She smiled faintly. "And the mob?" she asked. "They will retreat, regroup, and try again," he said calmly. "But they will remember what happens when a line is crossed. That memory will spread. Others will see it, learn it, and act accordingly. Fear alone will no longer hold the galaxy in chains." Over time, alliances strengthened. The broadcasts of the human and her reports inspired distant worlds to resist, to organize, to stand firm. The mob realized that their empire of fear was failing. Humans were teaching the galaxy a new rule. Strength is not enough without courage and awareness. Months later, a final confrontation occurred. The mob attempted one last coordinated strike, combining their remaining fleets and secret operatives. But the humans and allied colonies were prepared. Using knowledge, anticipation, and strategy, they neutralized the threat with minimal conflict. The mob had lost its grip entirely, and its leadership scattered. Their empire, once feared, became a lesson in underestimating those they considered weak. She and the human watched from the command balcony as the last mob ships fled into uncharted space. "It is done," she whispered. "The line has held." He nodded. "The line is never permanent. It must be maintained. But for now, it is held, and the galaxy has learned its lesson. Courage, strategy, and awareness. These are more powerful than fear." She understood fully now. The galaxy had changed. Humans had shown that even the smallest group, when guided by courage and intelligence, could stand against the largest power. They had drawn a line, and it had been respected. In the following weeks, colonies that had once lived under the shadow of the mob began trading freely, sharing knowledge, and building alliances. The human and she became symbols of resistance not just for her colony, but for countless worlds. Their actions proved that even in a galaxy ruled by fear, principles, courage, and strategic thinking could triumph. On the colony's main square, she addressed the citizens one last time before moving to oversee the rebuilding of neighboring colonies. "We have survived because we did not surrender," she said. "We survived because we adapted, we observed, and we acted. And we survived because we learned to draw a line, one that could not be crossed. This line belongs to all of us, and it will guide our actions in the future." The human stepped beside her, his presence quiet but commanding. "Remember this," he said. "Lines are drawn not by threats or numbers. They are drawn by awareness, courage, and the willingness to act when necessary. That is the human line. Protect it, respect it, and teach it. The galaxy will remember." Far across the stars, remnants of the mob watched in defeat. For the first time, they understood that power without respect, without adaptation, without courage, was fragile. They had ruled with fear for decades, but the human had proven that even the mightiest could fall when they underestimated the strength of those who refused to bend. She looked up at the distant stars, feeling hope fill her chest. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but it had changed. Humans had shown what it meant to stand firm, to defend what mattered, and to draw lines that others could not cross. And as she turned to continue her work, she knew that the galaxy would never forget the day a snarl, a line, and courage changed everything. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would carry forever. Humans were not just survivors. They were guardians, strategists, and unyielding defenders of what they valued. And in that lesson lay the true power of humanity.